Hey, what's up? Looking to have a quick conversation about expectations and assumptions. And I hope this is going to help somebody out. I want to make sure that we are sharing some quality content, and that starts essentially with expectations. So expectations and assumptions. I interact with lots of people, and sometimes they'll come to that HR guy, George, and say, "Hey, that HR guy, George, I am really frustrated with this person. They are coming in late multiple times. They can't seem to put their cell phone away. They're taking calls at work when they should be working. They're just doing some stuff that I just really do not appreciate them doing. And you know what? I'm ready to write them up, or I'm ready to fire them and be done with them. I'm ready to move on down the road because they are not who we need for the work that we're doing." And one of my first questions in this always is, what sort of expectations have been set with this person? So expectations are key in work environments. Expectations are key in personal environments and interactions with humans everywhere. It's important to have an expectation set with the other humans that you're interacting with in a work environment or a personal environment, just to make sure that other people understand what it is that you're expecting, and that you understand what other people are expecting of you. We all have expectations placed on us in lots of different ways. And so it's important to understand what those expectations are. I would submit to you that that same way that that person came in and was talking about the people on their team that are coming in late and talking on their cell phone and doing things that they don't want them to do, that they might or might not have a real clear expectation of what it is that they're supposed to be doing and how it is that they're supposed to perform. And so expectations expectations are the word of the day. And when I flip this around, you can actually see barely expectations. See that? Expectations. So we've got to make sure that your expectations are clear. And what we find a lot is that the expectation is assumed. I just assumed that if we're going to work in a grown-up job, that we need to be there when we're supposed to be there. I just assumed that when I'm working a grown-up job, that people would put their cell phones away or put their phone on silent so it wouldn't interrupt people and make for bad video. I would assume that people would be able to interact with other people in a respectful way, and be able to interact with them in a way that they could continue to interact with them without causing conflict and strife. The thing about uh, expectations that are assumed is that, does everybody understand like what happens when you assume? So when you assume, and it's just a real quick spelling um, exercise, really. So assume is ASSUME. Right. So this is assume. ASSUME. You know what happens when you assume your expectations, and when you find yourself in that frustrated place, when you find yourself in the position where, man, I am sick and tired of this person acting this way over and over and over, and I'm ready to fire them. You have to make sure that your expectations are not assumed, because if they are, you're going to end up making an ass out of you and me. An ass out of you and me when you assume that the expectations are clear. If what you expect is here and what you're seeing is here, you're in a gap there, right? There's a performance gap, and we manage that performance gap with corrective action and other things. But if there's not a real clear expectation, if there's not a real clear starting point of what it is that we're doing, then we find ourselves in that area of frustration. Frustration happens in the gap when the expectations and what it is that I'm observing are not matching up. There's lots of friction there, right? There's a lot of friction, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of I'm sick and tired of inside that gap. And so that's what we got to do very first, is set an expectation. It's got to be a real clear expectation. Hey man, so Our customers depend on us to be here at a certain time, and I expect you to be here by 8 o'clock every morning. That's just something that I expect. I expect that while we're here, we're going to put in a solid 8 hours of work. I need you to be free from distraction. I need you to be focused on the job that we ask you to do. We get it that, there might be uh, emergency situations that come up, but emergency situations are not an everyday kind of thing, right? And so while you're here, we need you working. We need you working hard. I need your full attention for the time and money that we're spending on you to train you up and to pay you to do this job. Making sure that those expectations are very clear, and at the same time asking for expectations of that person that you're working with. What do you need from me? Do we need to manage this gap? How do we manage this gap? Can we partner together to manage this gap? Do you need some suggestions from me about setting your alarm earlier or getting in the car sooner or something to make it to where you can get to work on time? What can I do to help be able to close that gap so that what it is that I expect matches with the performance that I'm seeing? It matches with the performance that I'm seeing. So that's really where it breaks down, is that we've got to make sure we got a real clear expectation so that our expectation is going to match with the behavior that we observe. You know what happens when the expectation matches the behavior that we observe? We get to celebrate. We celebrate because we clap, right? Because the expectations that we have are matching up with what it is that we need our folks to do. And because they know what's expected of them, they're going to make the choice to do it. And that gives us the opportunity to celebrate. It gives us the opportunity to pat this person on the back and say, you know what? We had this conversation. We let you know what the expectation was, and you're really hitting it out of the park. You're here when I need you to be here. You're here on time. I appreciate that. The expectations and the observations meet, and they match, and they make that noise, and we're able to celebrate and hold accountability in a positive way. And it's not always in a negative way. Accountability is not a bad word. We'll talk more about accountability next time. So do not assume that your people know what it is that you expect. Have very clear expectation setting conversations with your folks. Make sure that they understand. Because when you're clear on your expectations and you're not making assumptions about your expectations, that's where your frustration comes into play. Wipe that out. Make sure that everybody's got a real clear expectation. Make sure they understand what it is that you expect so they can perform the way that they need you to perform. And then when your expectations match up with your observations of what they're doing and how they're performing, and those things are matching, celebrate, hold accountability, right? Make sure that you're showing them that I see what it is that you're doing and I appreciate what you're doing and you're doing a good job, and please keep it up. Those are all great things. So next time we'll talk more specifically about accountability and what accountability means to all of us. For now, I'm out of here. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.